our actions. There's a little bit buzz back on this, Steve, on the microphone. Turn it down a little bit. Tests? Okay, that's better. We are a pluralistic religion that draws wisdom from many sources. We welcome all people into our beloved community of whatever age, race, class, ethnicity, physical ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religious background. We especially welcome those worshiping with us for the first time. Guests are welcome to participate in any activity of our community. Welcome team members are wearing green name badges and are ready to answer any questions you may have if you are a visitor or new to this congregation. Pastoral care members are wearing yellow name badges and are able to talk to you if you are having life transitions or need assistance. We invite everyone to join us downstairs after the service for coffee so that we can get to know each other better. Thank you for being with us today. We have 2 spotlights this morning, Ann.
Good morning. My name is Anne Marie Tody, and I would like to first start off my spotlight with the first 2 paragraphs written in the New York Times. On July 6th, Sonia Macy called 911 to report an intruder. After Sean Grayson, a sheriff's deputy, and another officer found no intruder outside of her home in Sangamon County, Illinois, they knocked on her door. The situation escalated after Ms. Macy went to turn off her stove. Within seconds, Mr. Grayson drew his gun and shot her in the head. The death of George Floyd in 2020 drew public outrage and calls for a wide variety of police reforms. There is still a lot we don't know about the Macy situation, including if she was experiencing mental distress. But the killing of Miss Macy is a cold reminder of how little has changed in the years since. And my spotlight today is there's going to be I don't know what you would call it. What is that? A rally, a memorial tribute to Sonia Macy. And the title of it is Say Her Name. On Sunday, August 4th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. at the Metropolitan Community Church of the Quad Cities on West Locust Street in Davenport. I will have this flyer downstairs on the tables, and I would like my church to be represented at this rally. If you can take pictures of it, I will also post it on the Racial Justice Board downstairs. And I hope you will show up for Miss Macy. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne Marie. I'm here to talk about food. My name's Lori McCullum, and today is our last July without any treats downstairs, our last Sunday. And starting in August, those of you who would like to be part of our hospitality teams, we're going to have to get reorganized. If you still want to be on a team, if you've been on a team, you want to remain on a team, let your team leader know that. If you aren't on a team and you want to be on a team, we need you to beef up the teams we have. We used to have like 15 teams, we now have 7. We used to have 10 on a team, we now have 8. So people are rotating in and out much more frequently, and we're relying on them more heavily. They help greet at the door, they help hand out hymnals, they take care of coffee hour downstairs, and you help bring treats when it's your turn. So let me know, or let your team leader know, if you still want to participate or get added to the teams. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. I wasn't going to do that because John always does that, but I see why. My name is Gale Springer. No, I'm not related to Jerry Springer, although I do have a younger brother named Jerry. It took a couple minutes, sorry. Our opening words this morning are from Jennifer Kitchen. Come sit by our fire and let us share stories. Let me hear your tales. Far off lands, wanderer, and I will tell you of my travels. Share your experience of the holy with me, worshiper, and I will tell you of that which I find divine. Come and stay, lover of leaving, for ours is no caravan of despair, but of hope. We would hear your stories of grief and sorrow as readily as those of joy and laughter. For there is a time and a place and a hearing for all stories of this world. Stories are the breath and the word of the spirit of life, the power that we name love. Come, for our fire is warm and we have seats for all. Come, yet again come. Speak to me of what fills your heart, what engages your mind, what resides in your soul. Let us worship together. I now invite you to join me in the lighting of the chalice. We are going to have the Tululu family go ahead and light the chalice for us this morning. The words are in your order of service and up on the screen. This chalice is for the living, the changing, the becoming. This chalice is for losing the script of your life, the chapters about who you are and in other people's stories. This chalice is for the lost GPS that was supposed to show you how to get where they expected you to go. This chalice is for skipping the directions, coloring outside the lines, painting not by number, but by silence, by wild abandon, with a brush you made yourself from light deep inside. Startling, vivid, a new voice that already knows you. Finally, a true story. Please rise if you're willing and are able for our opening song, number 188, words that you've just heard. Come, come, whoever you are. The words are, and we'll sing this 3 times.
We'll do this as a round. I'll play it once.
If you'll remain standing, let's take a few minutes to greet each other on this beautiful cloudy day. Okay, introverts, you're saved. Extroverts, it's time to sit down. Saving my fellow introverts, you may all sit. It's time for words for
Children would like
allegiance.
to come forward if you want to. All right, good morning, everybody. So we're going to raise this up a little bit. There we go. So we've been talking about new beginnings. When I was up here a couple weeks ago, we were talking about things that change. So today we're going to read a story. I'm going to read it to y'all and try and show the congregation the pictures and describe what's going on for those who can't see. But it's a book about friendship. It's a book about change. And then we'll go downstairs and we'll maybe talk and think a bit more about how our lives change. We live in the moment. We've got our past. We've got a future that we look forward to. And maybe we'll talk about those kind of three phases of our lives and how things change. But today, this book is courtesy of the Pickrell family. It's a book called Our Tree Named Steve. I don't know if they selected it because Steve was the title in prominent, bold letters on the front. But so this is written. This is a narrative of a note that is written by I think it's the father in the story. Yeah. So it starts out and there's a backdrop of a nice forest picture here. Dear kids, a long time ago when you were little, Mom and I took you to where we wanted to build a house for us to live in. But in order to build there, men had to come and clear the land. The next picture, there's some kids looking up at this gnarly tree. And it goes, I remember there was one tree, however, the three of you couldn't stop staring at. Adam thought it was crying. Lindsay said it looked nervous, and Sari, who was only 2 years old, couldn't pronounce the word tree, so she called it Steve. I love you, Steve, she kept saying. And then Adam and Lindsay started saying it, and before too long, Mom and I got the hint, and we asked the builder to please save Steve. And then, so now there's the picture, there's the big gnarly tree in the front, and there's a house in the back. It says, the day we moved in, Steve was there to greet us, and the family's looking at Steve in the window. Steve quickly worked his way into our lives as a swing holder, a target, a third base, a hiding place, a jump rope turner, and there's Steve with all these different things attached to him while the kids are playing. And then another picture, it looks a little green and windy out here. Whenever our dryer broke down, he held our underwear with pride. There he is, set up as a clothesline. And here it's at nighttime with some lights out. Yes, right there in the center of our yard, this weird-looking tree grew to become the center of our outdoor life. Through all our barbecues, campouts, dance parties, and now it's autumn. Seasons are changing here. Or when Adam and Lindsay start getting crushes on the Simon kids next door, Steve adjusted to our every need. So now he's looks like he's a hangout place for the kids and their friends and the dog's friend. And now the seasons have changed again. It's winter. It wasn't always easy, standing tall through snowstorms in the winter. And then now it looks like it's spring again. Maybe it's a little wet. When Uncle Chester napped in the hammock, couldn't possibly have been fun. There's a very large individual stretched out in a hammock across Steve's limbs. Not to mention the time the sewer overflowed and Steve sucked up all the smelly water before it drowned Kirby. Not sure if Kirby was the dog, maybe. Then, in the next shot here, it looks like a lumberjack or an arborist is maybe going to have to do some trimming. It says, he got so sick himself, the tree doctor had to give Steve a haircut. It made him look like a big thumb. Through the years, Mom and I tried to show you, in a world filled with strangers, the peace that comes from having things you can count on and a safe place to return to after a hard day or a long trip. Which brings me to the point of this letter. Last week, a storm hit our area. Oh dear. And you can see Steve is not doing well. He is cracked over. And though we spared Steve's life a long time ago, this time we couldn't save him. There's some storm damage on the house, and Steve is no more. Are we sad? Now Steve's been chopped off. Sure we are, but even in his final moments, when he could have fallen on our house, Sari Swings, Kirby's house, Mom's garden, Steve performed his last trick and protected all of us to the very end. And friends like that are hard to find. Now there's a kind of a grayish, bluish picture here. It's kind of sad looking, the stump of Steve. Kirby the dog's lying on it. So when you come home from Grandma's next week, Steve will not be able to greet you as he's done in the past. I'm sorry. But please know that Steve will always be with us in our hearts, in our thoughts, and in a different tree at the other end of our yard. See, now I've moved the tree house, and there's the stump of old Steve's stump, and I think spiritually or maybe metaphorically, Steve has now passed on to this next tree. And there's a nice picture of the kids in the front here. See you next week. Love, Dad. And with that, let's go downstairs and think more about this story and changes. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Susan Perry, a member of the Pastoral Care Associates Ministry team. As we gather today, we pause to reflect on what lies within our hearts. In this time of sharing, we take a moment to recognize our personal joys and sorrows and to read from the book of joys and sorrows those personal life events you have chosen to share with us. I just wanted to mention one joy, that the Big 7 was yesterday, and thanks to the runners, volunteers, and musicians, some of which are members of this church. Two sorrows. Lori McCollum states that we note the passing of former UU Craig Clow, who was a musician who often played here and was even our janitor for a time. The other sorrow is from Anne Marie Tody. Dennis Darlin's brother, Kenneth, passed this past Thursday, and our hearts are with you. Are there any online? Thank you. For what has been shared and for what remains in the quiet sanctuary of our hearts, we are grateful. Let us become aware of the energy that brings us together in beloved community as we share a time of silent meditation. May we open our hearts and minds to a place of quiet, to a silent prayer for the healing of pain and the comfort of love. You are invited to come forward and light a candle during the musical meditation that follows.
congregation is supported by the pledges of our members and friends. The offering provides an additional opportunity for expressing generosity by those attending today's worship. We are sharing the plate today and offering a 50% this month with the UUCQC community meal. Please be as generous as you're able. How many of you remember that song? Yeah. I kind of grew up with it with my parents. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Gale Springer. Again, not related to the famous Jerry. I am a member here at this church. I'm on the Board of Trustees. I'm also the leader of the Earth-Based Traditions group. If you want to know what that is, see me afterwards, but we're more of a pagan, heathen, Wiccan, earth-based group. But anyway, my initial thought when I chose to take this service was to talk more on that earth-based theme, because the beginning of August is the beginning of the harvest season. And, you know, while the harvest is very important to us as human beings, and it's more in my wheelhouse, being an earth-based tradition person, not to mention it fits very nicely into the theme of beginnings that we have been doing this month, I had a calling to talk about some things in my life and how they related to my spiritual growth. And I'm hoping that perhaps a thing or two that I talk about today resonate with your journey and your spiritual growth. So my decision to change about what I was going to talk to you about started on July 3rd. I already had most of my service planned out, and on July 3rd, I was at work, and I opened up an email from my HR representative. Subject line, "It is with great sadness." I opened this email to discover that a coworker of mine had passed away on July 2nd. That email line was the truest subject line I had ever read. My coworker, Roger, he had been with the company for over 20 years. He was one of the first guys who wasn't in my immediate department that I got introduced to. And I'll never forget how that introduction went, because I've used the exact same words many a time when I was introducing new people in my department to Roger. "Gale, this is Roger. Roger is one of the most knowledgeable people you'll ever find out here, and one of the nicest. If you're ever unsure who to ask or what you need to know, come see Roger." So at the time, I thought the person was just playing lip service to Roger. But I quickly learned Roger was undersold. Roger truly was a one-of-a-kind. He was intelligent. He was nice. He never had a bad word to say about anything or anybody, even with all the transitions my work was going through. Opening that email and seeing that I would never get to say hi to Roger again, it broke my heart. And I cried at work, which I hate to do. I'm almost going to cry here, but I'm going to stop. So Monday, July 8th rolled around, and that day was his memorial. And I went, it was just right up the street here at Runge's, and I, met with his wife, said all the appropriate things, talked to his family, showed my respect. I went out to my car and I cried some more. Memorials and funerals are hard for anybody. Well then, the Tuesday the 9th, at 2:21 exactly, according to my email, I got an email from Gates. It was addressed to myself and a few other people that are doing services. And he stated that the choir had some songs ready for service, and he asked if any of the songs fit where we may be going with our service. And at 2:29, I responded. I claimed the Lennon-McCartney song that you heard sung this morning. And that is what led me down to the path to today. So, Gates, choir, Steve on the guitar, thank you for putting in the work. Thank you for having the song ready. I never would have gone this direction if it wasn't for you. So with that experience of my coworker's memorial and the words of our prelude song, a song that I've heard many times in the past, I was thinking about all the places that I have been, all the experiences I have had, all my beginnings and all of my endings. There are many that stand out brighter than others. One of the strongest memories in my life is related to the photo on the cover of your order of service and up on the screen. This is Dunnottar Castle in Scotland. This is one of my most favorite places in the world. If I'm not loving on a tree, I would rather be there. Dunnottar Castle, I'm going to give you just a little bit of a history. It's perched on top of a 160-foot tall rock, surrounded on 3 sides by the North Sea. And it is believed that the Picts established Dunnottar Castle somewhere between 5000 BC and 700 AD. It is truly one of the greatest forts in Scottish history, as well as one of the deadliest. For example, in 1219, when William Wallace attacked an English garrison who had taken over control of the fort, he showed no mercy to the soldiers and set fire to the chapel where they had taken refuge. There were no survivors. Throughout the years, the inhabitants of this castle changed hands from Scots to the English and back again. And I'm sorry, I am really dry because I'm talking about something that is making me shake. And I'm okay. But the inhabitants changed back and forth. At one time, they even had a lion in residence. It was pretty interesting. Then in 1776, the owner at the time was the 10th Earl. I'm probably going to butcher this. I call it Marshall. Somebody else will probably know what it really is. But anyway, he was a key figure in the failed Jacobite rising to overthrow King George I. He had to forfeit his title and his estates to the government of Scotland, which included Dunnottar Castle. In 1717, Dunnottar was sold off by the government to the York Building Company. Everything of any value was removed. The floors, the ceilings, all the furniture, leaving just the shell that you see. It sat like this until 1919, when it was purchased by Lord and Lady Cowdrey, and they began an extensive program of conservation, restoration, to protect it from the further damage and deterioration of the elements. It was then reopened to the public and remains in the same state, and it remains in the same family and open to the public to this day. There's a lot of very fascinating history on this castle. If you want to know more, see me, I can kind of point you to the directions. But if you're into Scottish and English lore, look this castle up. So my history with this castle was during the 4 years that I lived in Scotland, back in the 1970s. Yes, I am that old. I went to this castle at least a dozen times in those 4 years, and each time was different, and each time was unique. But the first time was the most memorable time, and the one that lives with me forever. So my family and I, we went because we explored all the castles in the area. We were taking a tour that we signed up for, and at one point, we were in the tall building that you see that we did a close-up on, and there was a stairwell that was roped off. Big sign said, "Do not cross." So what did 7-year-old me want to do? Oh yeah, I wanted to get under that rope. I wanted to go higher. I wanted to know what was up there. So the first chance I got, I snuck away from my parents because we were in a castle on top of a hill. Where was I gonna go? So I snuck off. I snuck under the rope. And I carefully made my way up. It was a spiral staircase. And it was so old that the stairs were rounded. They weren't a staircase, it was more of a round. And it was very precarious of a climb because, you know, roped off for a reason. It's old. But I'm 7, I'm fearless. And I climbed. And I remember as I was climbing, my mood changed from curiosity to anticipation. I could feel something was coming. I could feel there was something I needed to see. And as I climbed higher and higher, looking through the windows as I went up, I finally turned the last corner, and there was this huge gaping hole where there used to be a window, and you could see where the stairs just stopped. And at the top of those stairs, I haven't told many people this story. At the top of the stairs, there was a person standing there in a kilt and a shirt, looking all crazy. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I didn't see anybody looking like that when I was on the tour. Who is that person? So 7-year-old me, fearless. Hello. So what I said, person turned and looked at me, just disappeared. Gone, poof. Okay, so yeah, I'm telling a little bit of a ghost story, but what I'm telling you is what I saw. And yes, I was 7. I wasn't prone to making up stories. I was a pretty straight-laced Catholic girl. What happened to me left me with just so much awe, and it put me on a path that I'm still on. I wasn't scared. I'll never be scared. And hindsight being 20/20, I also feel like my acceptance of this experience opened me up spiritually in a way that I knew that the Catholic Church never would. Now, I'm not here to bash the Catholic Church. I'm here to tell you my story. I never told my parents until years later. I'm talking years. And they both said, you know, I kind of remember that day because we knew you ran away. We couldn't find you, but we also knew you didn't go far because we're on a huge hill with a castle and there's only one way in and out. But they said that I was a little different that day. I was a little more curious about things that I probably shouldn't have been curious about. I was curious about death. I was curious about what happened after you died. Now, I didn't immediately believe in spirits, even though I saw one, but I was open to the possibilities where I wasn't before. And then in the times after that visit, we went again and again, and we went to different castles and different places in Scotland and England, and I had a very strong sense of the history of where I was and what I was walking around, and I did not only see a few more spirits, but I talked to a few more, not just at the Otter, but in other places throughout the world over the years. I've even seen a couple here in the Quad Cities. So I did start reading more and more books on death and the afterlife and what I should expect. And I honestly can say that I believe that your aura or consciousness, if that's how you want to think about it, moves differently than your physical body. I think most of us know that. And once your body ends, your aura moves forward into a new beginning, into the afterlife. A lot of people believe in the concept of heaven, purgatory, hell. Personally, I don't. I never really bought into that. I never felt like if you're good, you get to go to heaven, and if you're bad, you go to hell, and if you're in between, you just get to live in purgatory and marinate. That didn't make sense to me. It just did not, it never made sense to me. I always felt like we were put on this earth for a reason. Whether you believe in God, goddess, spirit, whatever it is, we're put here for a reason. We're put here to learn. I fully believe in reincarnation. I believe this is not my only time around. I believe there are people in our lives that we gravitate towards that we have met in other lives. I don't believe I'm going to come back as a dung beetle. I would love to come back as a cat, but I don't believe that that's true either. You're going to come back as another human being because that's where our intellect is. We are human beings. We're going to come back as a human being. But I also firmly believe that when you're in the afterlife and you get to look over your life and see the things that you've learned, see the things that you've missed out on, you then get the chance to choose your next life. This life, I am a white female. Next life, I could be an Indian male. I could be anything that I choose to be. I can choose to be what I want to be to experience that life, no matter what it is. I feel like you get a chance time and time again to have these experiences to help you to become a better consciousness, to help you become more rounded. No, I don't remember my past lives. There are people who do. And there's ways that you can do regression and find out. Do I believe in that? Maybe. I believe it when I see it. Do I not believe in it? I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. We don't know. Nobody knows. No matter what happens in your life, you're going to have an ending, but you're also going to have a beginning in whatever capacity that you believe in. And as it is with these things in our lives, our spiritual growth here in this church, there's no true endings. Jay left, it was an ending, but it wasn't a true ending. The church didn't collapse in on itself and go into a black hole. We had a new beginning. And now we have another new beginning coming up, which is going to be talked about, I believe, by Lori. So I'm going to stop talking. But here at this church, we see the spirits of the past working in concert with our current physical selves in our community. And there's several ways. Look at the building and the way that it invites nature in. That's the spirit of the past bringing us together. The landscaping, our traditions of how our order of service is built, even our mission and vision. It's part of our past, and it's part of our future, and it's part of our today. Our mission is creating beloved community, and our vision is to be an inclusive place of belonging that works for social justice, inspired by our principles. I would like you to indulge me and say our principles with me. They will be up on the screen. First principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Second principle, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Fifth principle, the right of conscious use of the democratic process within our congregations. and a society at large. Sixth principle, the goal, liberty and justice for all. Seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Eighth principle, accountability dismantled, and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. These are our beginnings. These are what we need to remember. These principles and our own experiences are here to guide us on our path together, as well as individually. We each, even those who were brought up in this church, like the Harringtons, you have still chosen to be here. You could go somewhere else, but you've chosen to be here. This is another step in my life where I get to learn. Here in this community, this beloved community. And though I will never lose affection for people and things that went before, I know I will often think about them. And in my life, I love you more. If you'll rise and join me in our closing song, number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Join me in the extinguishing of our chalice. We extinguish this flame. You may be seated. Like I have that kind of power, you may be seated. I want to thank you all for listening to me today. I know it was a ghost story. I know sometimes it's hard to swallow, but for me, it's real. It's as real as I see you here today. And I appreciate each and every one of you. So as we leave this gathered community, we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other, our service to each other and to the world, and to our faith. It continues. Until we are together, friends, be strong, be well, be true, and be loving. And if you'll say it with me, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Thank you.